All right, let's move on to part two of chapter one and our brief overview to get the basics down for you guys. This is the development of modern massage. So, the first thing you need to remember, massage is at least 5,000 years old. Now, you may notice that this is the most basic PowerPoint presentation you've ever seen, but there are some just basic names and numbers that I did not want to distract from with any fancy colors and swirls. These are things that could show up on the NBLEX, but there will not be very many questions about this stuff on the NBLEX, so we don't want to waste too much time, but just having this in your brain might help you when you get hit that multiple choice question. We will probably not go over this stuff again until it is time to start studying for the NBLEX, but let's hope it just hits your subconscious now. So yes, massage is at least 5,000 years old. Now, where they're getting that number comes from China. According to the British Museum's records anyway, it goes back as far as 3000 BCE, but most likely is a lot older than that. Chinese medicine is a good 10,000 years of continuing developments. They used, what they were talking about 5,000 years ago was a method called Anmo. Anmo is still used today. It was one of the first things I learned in my massage journey. And it was basically the culmination of the experience they had where they found particular points on the body that would benefit from rubbing them or pressing them, and which led also to things that we're going to talk about here in a second. Tuina is a more modern term for massage in China. It literally means push-pull, and it is also part of Chinese medicine across the board. If you're in a Chinese medicine hospital, this will be part of the experience. Both things still used to this day. So talking about those specific spots on the body, that's really an understatement. What the Chinese developed was the meridians, all the points along those meridians, lines of energy moving through your body, and the points on which you can activate or clear blockages of that energy. And that is usually done by acupuncture, which I'm sure you all know uses needles, but it can also be accomplished with acupressure. Interestingly enough, that is in our scope of practice. This is something we can do and will be, because even like trigger points is something, another phrase you're going to hear a lot in the coming weeks, and a trigger point and an acupuncture point coincide more often than not. So anyway, China, 3000 BC. In India, we know that at least from 2000 BC, massage was practiced. Also, again, most likely long before that, but it is mentioned in 2000 BCE in a published? A book written called the Ayurveda, which means the art of life. And if you hear of Ayurvedic medicine, that is what they're referring to. I mean, that was like the original text. It is also still used today. So that was 2000 BCE. In Greece, 1500 BCE, Homer writes the Iliad and the Odyssey in this time frame and mentions massage as a treatment for the soldiers. So Rome also continues these same traditions. Massage is happening in the bathhouses and is part of just your normal health routine until the 3rd century. Constantine converts Rome to Christianity, and he abolishes gymnasiums and baths due to widespread abuses of a sexual nature. So without those places, the popularity of massage starts to dwindle, and the Western world goes into the Dark Ages. Now, it's important to note that that is 500 years, 500 years of Dark Ages for the Western world, but the Arabic Empire preserved much of the teaching of the physicians and the philosophers that came out of Greece, and China and India and some of the other Eastern cultures that had their own medical ways of looking at the world, they continued to grow as well. Not everyone lost all of their knowledge like we had in the West. So that brings us to a list of names. The 1800s rolls around and people start opening their mind. The Enlightenment starts in the 1600s and it just kind of grows. So now it's growing in popularity. And one of the first people that brought the use of massage to the public eye was a man named John Grosvenor. He developed something he called chirurgy. And I think it'd be pretty funny to find out the way MindTap reads that word, because I'd really like to know. You have in MindTap the ability to have the book read to you, specific phrases, specific sections, or the whole book. And we ought to see how they pronounce that. Anyway, it meant healing with the hands, and they basically used friction, which we will be talking about very soon. It's one of the massage practices still used widely today, and to work on the muscles, to work on the joints. Oh, and fun fact, he had female assistants that he kept in all of his offices, and they were called rubbers. But moving on. Another important name, Per Henrik Ling. He is from Sweden, and this is important because when you wonder where the term Swedish massage comes from, it goes back to this. It goes back to this man. So he was most famous for what he called medical gymnastics, and after his death, his methods were known as the Swedish movements. One of the forms of medical gymnastics was passive, and that one really was like massage therapy. The active and duplicated movements that he did are more along the lines of like Qigong, like a series of movements that is supposed to cure a certain disease, or physical therapy, where you work with the gymnast, is what they called it, to achieve your goals. So he is known as the father of physical education and the father of physical therapy, most of all. Just putting this in there, mostly because it's on the quiz. Don't think you're going to see this again. Matthias Roth was an English person who in 1851 founded the Institute of Swedish Gymnastics. He privately instructed Charles Fayette Taylor, who was an American man, brought this to the United States, calling it the Swedish movement cure. Now enters Dr. Johan Mesger. He is important. He's from Holland, but he introduced the French terms, which are commonly used in Swedish massage. And how that all worked out, I'm not exactly sure. But what you need to know is he introduced modern terminology, especially effleurage, petrissage, and tapotement. Like friction, these are things that you are going to be learning and using as we learn Swedish massage. And finally, John Harvey Kellogg, MD. In 1895, he published The Art of Massage, a practical manual for the nurse, the student, and the practitioner. Now, he drew off what was known at the time as the nature cure, and he was very anti-drug and into natural ways to heal the body. He called it physiological medicine to kind of bring more science into the nature cure. But he wasn't just anti-drug, he was anti a lot of things. Anything that might overstimulate you, because he was very anti-sex in every way. Never consummated his, this is just not in the book, but these are more fun facts. Never consummated his relationship with his wife, adopted children instead, and tried to produce very neutral tasting foods so that to be anaphrodisiacs, which means like anti-aphrodisiac. And so, yes, this is the founder of the Kellogg's cornflake, the creator of the cornflake. And he did not put any sugar in it. Later, his brother takes the recipe, adds sugar, and starts the Kellogg cereal company. And that addition of that sugar caused a rift with them that lasted decades. But anyway, yeah, that's your cornflakes. A whole new view on cornflakes. All right, one last thing. So there was a decline of massage, and that really started at the beginning of the 20th century. Part of that was because the popularity of massage that was increasing in the 1800s caused a lot of qualified practitioners to be out there in real schools that were helping people, that were legitimate. But there were also some very sketchy schools producing some very sketchy massage practitioners, some of which would use recruiting processes that would get these people ensnared in so much debt that they had to work at these special offices to pay off their debts, and a lot of times they were no more than just houses of prostitution. So that was all revealed in 1894 by the special inquiry by the British Medical Association. So that definitely developed a blow to the reputation of massage as a healing practice. It started to look So then there were also technical innovations, which they mention this in the book, just electronic devices at the time called vibrators, but things that were like ways you could massage yourself. And then there were advances in medicine that people were more excited about, advances in pharmaceuticals and surgeries and other ways of healing that were new and sort of eclipsed the old massage concept. But it did continue. Massage still happened in YMCAs and spas. There were still legitimate Swedish massage schools, but it just was not very popular. That turns around about 50 years ago, and that will be the topic of our final Chapter 1 PowerPoint.